The unexpected encounter. The morning sunlight cut through the downtown courthouse windows, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Detective Elena Rodriguez stood at the entrance, her crisp navy uniform a testament to her decade-long commitment to law enforcement. Her dark eyes scanned the bustling hallway, a mixture of determination and weariness etched into her expression. Today was not just another day in court. Today, she would face a hearing that would challenge everything she believed about justice, accountability, and her own professional conduct. The case involved a routine traffic violation that had spiraled into something far more complex. Detective Rodriguez had been responding to an emergency call when she allegedly violated multiple traffic protocols, narrowly avoiding a serious collision with a pedestrian. What should have been a simple review had transformed into a comprehensive examination of her professional judgment. Judge Marcus Hernandez, known for his unwavering commitment to fairness and meticulous attention to detail, would preside over the hearing. His reputation preceded him. A jurist who believed that the law was not just a set of rules, but a living, breathing mechanism of societal balance. As Elena walked towards the courtroom, her mind raced through the events of that fateful day. The emergency call, the split-second decisions, the near miss that had sparked this entire investigation. She was confident in her actions, believing that her intent to serve and protect superseded any technical infractions. The courtroom doors seemed to grow larger with each step. Her colleagues had offered mixed advice, some suggesting she fight aggressively, others recommending a more conciliatory approach. But Elena knew her truth was more nuanced than either extreme. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Legal assistants shuffled papers, reporters adjusted their notebooks, and the ambient murmur spoke of the significance of the proceeding. Judge Hernandez entered, his presence commanding immediate respect. His movements were deliberate, his gaze sweeping the room with a precision that made everyone sit a little straighter. Elena watched him, recognizing in him a kindred spirit of professional integrity. Detective Rodriguez, Judge Hernandez's voice cut through the courtroom's tension. You stand before this court to address allegations of reckless driving during an emergency response. The court will carefully examine the circumstances of your actions and their potential consequences. Elena stepped forward, her posture reflecting years of disciplined training. She understood that this was more than a personal trial. It was an opportunity to demonstrate the complex realities of law enforcement. As the hearing began, she knew that her response would not just determine her professional fate, but potentially influence how emergency responders' split-second decisions were viewed in the future. The stage was set for a profound exploration of professional ethics, personal accountability, and the delicate balance between urgency and responsibility. Shadows of accountability. The hearing room hummed with tension as Detective Elena Rodriguez prepared to share her perspective. Judge Marcus Hernandez leaned forward, his hands folded carefully on the bench, waiting to hear the full context of that critical day. Background of the incident. Elena's mind drifted back to the events leading up to the controversial traffic incident. It had been a typical Wednesday morning in the Metropolitan Police District. The dispatch had come in suddenly, a high-priority call about a potential armed robbery in progress at a local convenience store. The call came in at 7:32 hours. Elena began, her voice steady and professional. We had received multiple 911 reports of an armed suspect threatening staff at the Cornerstone convenience store on 5th and Main. She described the split-second decision-making process that defined critical emergency responses. The streets had been busy, traffic dense, and every moment counted. Her priority was clear: get to the potential crime scene as quickly and safely as possible. The personal cost of duty. What the official reports didn't capture was the personal weight Elena carried. Her younger brother had been a victim of an armed robbery years ago, an experience that had deeply impacted her choice to become a law enforcement officer. Each emergency call carried the echo of that personal trauma. Judge Hernandez listened intently, his expression neutral but attentive. He understood the complexities of law enforcement, the thin line between necessary risk and reckless action. Witness testimony. A traffic camera witness was called to provide additional context. Maria Gonzalez, a local bus driver, had been on her route that morning. Her testimony would prove crucial in understanding the full picture of Elena's actions. "I saw the police vehicle," Maria testified. "It was moving quickly, but the driver, Detective Rodriguez, was constantly checking her surroundings. She wasn't just speeding randomly." The broader context. The hearing wasn't just about a single incident. It represented a deeper examination of emergency response protocols, the pressures faced by law enforcement, and the balance between public safety and individual accountability. Elena's supervisors had mixed testimonies. Some praised her consistent record of effective emergency responses, while others raised concerns about the potential risks of her approach. Personal reflections. During a brief recess, Elena found a moment of quiet reflection. The weight of her profession pressed down on her. Each decision carried consequences, not just for her, but for the community she had sworn to protect. "It's never simple," she muttered to herself, watching the courthouse hallway fill with people. Judge Hernandez's perspective. The judge saw more than just a traffic violation. He recognized the complex human story behind the official reports, the personal motivations, the systemic challenges, the human element that often gets lost in bureaucratic proceedings. As the hearing continued, it became clear that this was more than a simple disciplinary review. It was an opportunity to examine the broader challenges faced by emergency responders. The tension in the room was palpable. Every word, every piece of testimony could tip the balance of the investigation. Elena Rodriguez stood at a crossroads, her professional reputation, personal integrity, and future career hanging in the delicate balance of justice and understanding. The turning point. The hearing entered its most critical phase as new evidence began to surface. What had started as a routine investigation was transforming into a complex exploration of professional ethics and systemic challenges. Unexpected revelations. A forensic traffic analyst named Dr. Daniel Winters presented a detailed reconstruction of the incident. His digital simulation revealed nuances that weren't immediately apparent in the initial reports. The projection showed Elena's vehicle navigating through traffic with remarkable precision, demonstrating a level of skill that went beyond typical emergency response. Detective Rodriguez driving. Dr. Winters explained, his fingers moving across a digital rendering. Shows remarkable situational awareness. She managed to avoid potential collisions while maintaining significant speed, a feat that requires exceptional training and reflexes. The systemic challenge. The hearing had become more than just an investigation into Elena's actions. It had transformed into a broader examination of emergency response protocols and the unrealistic expectations placed on law enforcement professionals. Elena's partner, Detective Robert Thompson, was called to provide context about their department's operational procedures. His testimony added depth to the understanding of that morning's events. "We're often asked to do the impossible," Thompson stated, his voice carrying a mix of frustration and professional pride. "Respond immediately, prevent crime, protect citizens, all while following every single protocol perfectly." Personal struggles. Behind the professional facade, Elena grappled with internal conflicts. The hearing brought to light the immense psychological pressure faced by emergency responders. Each call, each decision carried the weight of potential life or death consequences. During a brief recess, she recalled a conversation with her mentor years ago. In this job, he had told her, "You'll make split-second decisions that will be analyzed for hours, days, even years after the fact." Judge Hernandez's approach. Judge Marcus Hernandez approached the case with a nuanced perspective. He wasn't interested in simple punishment or exoneration. Instead, he sought to understand the broader context of professional decision-making under extreme pressure. "This hearing," he remarked during a key moment, "is not about finding fault. It's about understanding the complex realities of emergency response." A turning moment. The most dramatic moment came unexpectedly. A surveillance video from a nearby traffic camera was introduced. Footage that had been previously overlooked. The video revealed additional context about the emergency call and Alina's response. In the footage, Alina could be seen making a series of split-second decisions that demonstrated remarkable professional judgment. She had navigated through traffic, avoided potential accidents, and ultimately responded to a genuine emergency situation. The broader implications: the hearing had become more than an individual investigation. It was now a spotlight on the challenges faced by law enforcement, the unrealistic expectations, and the human element behind professional decisions. Alina Rodriguez stood at the center of this storm, her future hanging in the balance. The line between professional duty and potential misconduct had never seemed more blurred. As the day drew to a close, it was clear that this was no ordinary hearing. It was a profound examination of professional integrity, systemic challenges, and the human capacity for judgment under extreme pressure. The final decision approached, a moment that would define not just Alina's career, but potentially set a precedent for how emergency response actions were evaluated. Confronting inner demons. The courthouse corridors buzzed with anticipation as the hearing entered its most critical phase. Alina Rodriguez found herself at a crossroads, not just professionally, but personally. The investigation had become a mirror reflecting her deepest fears, motivations, and internal struggles. A moment of vulnerability. During a private consultation with her legal advisor, Alina's composed exterior began to crack. The weight of the investigation had been more than just a professional challenge. It was a deeply personal reckoning. "I've always believed that doing the right thing meant making tough choices," she confided, her voice barely above a whisper. But what happens when those choices are questioned? The psychological landscape. The hearing had exposed more than just the details of a single incident. It revealed the psychological toll of law enforcement, the constant pressure, the split-second decisions, the invisible scars carried by those who protect and serve. Dr. Laura Fernandez, a police psychologist called as an expert witness, provided crucial insights. Emergency responders live in a world of constant tension, she testified. Every call is a potential life or death scenario. The mental and emotional burden is immense. Unexpected personal connection. An unexpected twist emerged when a witness from the original emergency call came forward. Thomas Reynolds, a local business owner, provided context that nobody had anticipated. That morning, Reynolds testified, "There was a real threat. The suspect we reported was armed and dangerous. Detective Rodriguez's response potentially saved lives." The systemic pressure. The hearing had transformed into a broader examination of law enforcement challenges. Alina represented more than just herself. She embodied the countless professionals who navigate impossible situations daily. Judge Marcus Hernandez seemed to understand this deeper narrative. His questions probed not just the specific incident, but the broader context of emergency response. "We're not just examining a single moment," he remarked during a crucial phase of the hearing. "We're looking at the systemic pressures that shape professional decision-making." Personal reflection. During a break, Alina found a quiet corner of the courthouse. Her mind drifted to her early days in law enforcement, the idealism, the hope, the belief that she could make a difference. Her phone buzzed. A message from her father, a retired police officer, brought unexpected comfort. "Remember," it read, "integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest about your intentions." The turning point. As the hearing progressed, it became clear that this was more than a disciplinary review. It was a profound exploration of professional ethics, personal accountability, and the complex realities of emergency response. Alina Rodriguez stood at the center of this storm, her entire career and personal identity hanging in the balance. The line between professional duty and potential misconduct had never seemed more nuanced. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. Every word, every piece of testimony carried the potential to reshape not just Alina's future, but potentially the understanding of emergency response protocols. A deeper understanding. Judge Hernandez's approach suggested he was seeking more than a simple verdict. He was attempting to understand the human element behind professional decisions, the fears, motivations, and challenges that define emergency response. As the day drew to a close, the initial charges seemed to fade into the background. What remained was a deeper, more nuanced exploration of professional integrity, systemic challenges, and the human capacity for judgment under extreme pressure. The final decision approached, a moment that would define not just Alina's career, but potentially set a precedent for how emergency response actions were evaluated. Redemption and understanding. The final day of the hearing dawned with an atmosphere of anticipation. The courthouse seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the resolution of a case that had become far more than a simple investigation of a traffic incident. Judge Marcus Hernandez entered the courtroom, his demeanor reflecting the weight of the decision before him. The journey of the past days had revealed layers of complexity far beyond the initial allegations against Detective Alina Rodriguez. The verdict. After careful consideration of all evidence, Judge Hernandez began, his voice steady and measured. This court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances surrounding Detective Rodriguez's actions. He outlined a nuanced decision that would become a landmark in understanding emergency response protocols. Instead of a simple guilty or not guilty verdict, the judgment was a comprehensive review of systemic challenges faced by law enforcement. A transformative outcome. The court's recommendation was unprecedented. Rather than punishment, Alina would be tasked with developing new training protocols for emergency response situations. Her experience would be transformed into a learning opportunity for the entire department. Detective Rodriguez, the judge continued, your actions demonstrate the complex realities of law enforcement. This court recognizes both the risks and the responsibilities inherent in your profession. Personal transformation. For Alina, the hearing had been more than a professional challenge. It was a profound personal journey of self-reflection and growth. The process had stripped away her professional armor, revealing the deeply committed individual beneath. I've learned that accountability isn't about being perfect, she later reflected. It's about understanding the impact of our decisions and continuously striving to do better. Broader impact. The case quickly gained attention beyond the local jurisdiction. Law enforcement agencies across the country began to examine their own emergency response protocols, inspired by the nuanced approach demonstrated in Alina's hearing. Thomas Reynolds, the witness who had provided crucial context, approached Alina after the proceedings. You've changed something important today, he said, his voice filled with respect. You've shown that professional integrity isn't about avoiding mistakes, but about how we respond to them. A new path. Dr. Laura Fernandez's expert testimony had opened up conversations about the psychological challenges faced by emergency responders. Alina found herself at the forefront of a movement to provide better support and understanding for law enforcement professionals. The department's response. Alina's department, initially defensive, now saw an opportunity for growth. They implemented new training programs based on the insights gained from her case, focusing on decision-making under pressure and the importance of psychological support. Reflections of justice. Judge Hernandez's final remarks captured the essence of the entire proceedings. Justice is not about punishment, he stated. It's about understanding, growth, and creating systems that support those who protect our communities. A personal journey concludes. As Alina left the courthouse, she felt a sense of transformation. The investigation that had threatened to define her negatively had instead become a catalyst for positive change. Her journey had revealed a fundamental truth. True accountability is not about perfection, but about continuous learning, understanding, and commitment to serving others. The case of Detective Alina Rodriguez would be remembered not as a moment of potential failure, but as a turning point in understanding the complex realities of emergency response and professional integrity.